Before anybody asks, no, I have not seen the new Wonka Origins movie. I refuse. Not even as research for this Willy Wonka video. But why, I hear you say? Don't you like Paul King, director of Paddington and Paddington 2? Don't you like Timothée Chalamet? That's the thing, I love both Pauls, and that's exactly why I will not watch this movie. Because I will not watch them embarrass themselves in this manner. It looks ass. When I was a child, I thought like a child, and I loved the Johnny Depp version of Willy Wonka. Jesus Christ said that, not me. And like Jesus always says, to err is human, to forgive is godly. I thought the old version of Willy Wonka was boring, and the new version ruled. But then I grew up, and I went,
strike that. Reverse it.
It was like that moment when I realized 80% dark chocolate is not at all yucky, but actually superior to milk chocolate in every single way. I realized that I was no longer a child, that I had grown into a man. And I asked the Lord and Savior Gene Wilder to absolve me of my past sins of preferring the Tim Burton version of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So unless stated otherwise, I will only be referring to the original 1971 movie, which I have grown to absolutely adore. But now that I am not a child, I do not simply watch movies. No, I am far more sophisticated. I require deep truths to be revealed to me to tickle my enjoyment bone. I must analyze my favorite movies according to canonical, philosophical, sociopolitical theories. So here we go. Part 1. Willy Wonka and the Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx was... well, he was into Marxism. He developed a theory called historical materialism. Part of that theory suggests that art, intentionally or unintentionally, can be used as a machine to create a false narrative within the working class and convince them to preserve the capitalist system which oppresses them. Now, Karl Marx is dead, not to be political, but for the sake of argument, let's just imagine a bunch of communist occultists bring him back to life in defiance of all that is holy. Then I'd say probably his least favorite movie would be Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. First of all, Wonka, the rich man who owns the means of chocolate production, is celebrated and praised for his genius above all else. Everything that Wonka does is acceptable because he's rich, so he must be a genius, and it's all part of his 5D chess plan. Willy Wonka was born to be a Candyman. And you look like you were born to be a Wonkerer, says the candy seller in the opening minutes of the film. Willy Wonka was born to create, and you were born to consume. He instills order in the young kids in front of him and in the young kids watching the movie. Unlike a normal capitalist, Wonka doesn't even provide jobs and a living for the people of his city. How he operates his factory is a mystery until it is revealed that he has what seems suspiciously similar to slave labor running his factory, which he pays with chocolate while amassing wealth for himself. It's safe to assume that the severe poverty in this area is caused partially by Wonka letting all of his employees go. In the book it's said straight up that Joe Bucket, Charlie's grandfather, was himself among the fired employees. Despite that, Wonka is embraced as an idol by society and even by the poor Bucket family. As for the Oompa Loompa working conditions, the movie does not care one bit. It seems like the Oompa Loompa are happy without workers' rights. Moreover, they are considered good workers, unlike the previous employees who sold his secrets. If you're not greedy, you will go far. You will live in happiness too, like the Oompa Loompa doopity-doo. They sing, referring to the drowning of Augustus Gloop, really telling the kids that obeying the rules and accepting their place is the best thing they can do for themselves, even if that place is as a worker with no rights. Greediness is what got Augustus and Violet punished. It's true for the other two kids as well, but they are punished for an additional reason: trying to seize the means of production. Veruca and Mike try to take control of the golden egg-laying goose and the Wonka vision, respectively. The movie presents a reality where any attempts to do anything in the factory without the approval of the CEO has devastating consequences. Only Wonka, the capitalist owner, is capable of keeping the factory operational.
You stole fizzy lifting drinks. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing!
Even after Charlie gets control of the factory, Wonka explains that the purpose of the competition and the final test is to find a kid who will keep Wonka's legacy operating in Wonka's way and not try to change it one bit.
Not a grown-up. A grown-up would want to do everything his own way, not mine.
Only the ruling class can decide the way. The lower class can, at the best case scenario, after proving their complete loyalty, inherit it and work to preserve it. and they prove their loyalty by purchasing as much products as they can possibly afford, getting incredibly lucky, and proving their commitment to preserving the company's intellectual property forever. The character of Willy Wonka represents the elitist class in a very specific way. He makes a desirable product, which brings joy to all, and so he is worshipped. He is part of the elite because of his genius. Everyone accepts that he deserves his massive wealth. How much he gives to the community, if at all, is irrelevant. How the product is made is irrelevant. All that matters is the capitalist innovation, the world of pure imagination that disconnects people from reality and blinds them to their own exploitation. Zombie Marx would say that this movie is a part of the oppression machine that creates the false narrative within the working class, and would not be surprised to learn that the movie's budget was entirely funded by the Quaker Oats Company, who at the time held the license to make and distribute chocolate bars under the Wonka brand.
I said, Quaker Oats, that's not a studio, that's an oatmeal company. And he said, well, I convinced them that they should make a Wonka bar and start with a big chocolate thing, and they'd make a lot of money from it. They gave us $3 million.
Part 2. Willy Wonka and the Interpretation of Dreams. In the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from 1971, the world of chocolate is presented as a world of dreams. In the chocolate factory, rules of space are bent.
All of my dreams become realities.
Even the invitation to the factory describes going there as a dreamlike experience.
In your wildest dreams, you could not imagine the marvelous surprises that await you.
The idea is further established in Wonka's song. He promises a world of pure imagination, where anything is possible. Anything you want to, do it. Soon we will find out doing anything you want comes at a cost. In addition, he hints that the factory will reveal the deepest hidden wishes of its visitors. You will be free if you truly wish to be. The song ends with, if you truly wish to be. It seems like a strange line to end on, but it makes sense when you realize that this is what Willy Wonka wants, to reveal each child's true wishes. That's the entire purpose of the world of pure imagination. In the first half of the movie, there are these little vignettes that are sprinkled throughout about different random people who are looking for the golden ticket. In one of them, we see a man laying on a couch. Next to him sits a German psychologist. The patient describes a dream he had about the golden ticket. The psychologist interprets the dream and suggests that the location of the golden ticket in the dream might hint to its real whereabouts. The German psychologist treats the world of dreams and the world of chocolate as one. This posture is at this point a pop culture cliché of what psychological treatment looks like, but not many know that the origins of it is a very specific method from a very specific man. Sigmund Freud was a disgusting pervert who wrote some books. In one of said books, he claimed that dreams are an expression of our deepest unfulfilled wishes. He gives this example. He interprets a dream that his own daughter had. In the dream, a boy she knows lives with her, and later in the same dream, she receives chocolate. In his interpretation, Freud draws a link between a hidden desire for the boy and there being chocolate. He claims the desire for chocolate is more acceptable. So in her dream, Anna Freud, the daughter, unconsciously replaced the hidden desire for her friend with chocolate. In this theory, just like in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, chocolate reveals the deepest wishes. When Veruca doubts the existence of a snozzberry, Wonka grabs her face and says,
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
Notice he uses we, not I. He tells Veruca that the children are also part of the dream, and so their deepest desires would also be revealed, not just Wonka's. And indeed, their deepest desires are exposed, and show why each of them is unfit to inherit the factory. Augustus just wants to gobble food. Violet wants to be the best at everything, Veruca wants to own everything, and Mike wants to be famous. But what is Wonka's desire? His deepest wish is to be young, to live forever. And if he can't, then maybe his chocolate can. His creation. That's why all his potential heirs are young and impressionable. Only a kid can have Wonka's legacy preserved. And that's why he's so disappointed with what he discovers about the 4 kids. Only Charlie, whose passion is revealed to be a true enchantment from Wonka's inventions, gets the opportunity to prove himself in the final test. Part 3. Willy Wonka and the Eternal Candy. Charlie's final test is one of honesty. Wonka fears corporate espionage and so constructs a test for Charlie, where he needs to prove that he would not steal the everlasting gobstopper and sell it to the competition. To pass the test, Charlie needs to accept his own loss and not begrudge Wonka for it. He has to stay loyal and keep Wonka's secret, even though he's been unfairly eliminated from the contest. Zombie Marx would say, this test preserves the capitalist system which oppresses the free sharing of inventions and keeps patents exclusive to their creator. Only by surrendering to the capitalist system does Charlie win. But Wonka doesn't test Charlie with just any candy. No, he tests him with the gobstopper, the candy for poor children.
For children with very little pocket money.
The everlasting gobstopper would improve the lives of impoverished children everywhere, but we need to trust Wonka and Wonka alone with it. As for imaginary resurrected Freud, I guess he'd say the eternal gobstopper represents Wonka's own dream. He cannot keep running the factory forever, so he seeks an heir to keep his life's work alive after he's gone. The candy that lasts forever is Wonka's most secret invention because it represents Wonka's most secret desire, the desire for eternity. The test, on the other hand, represents Wonka's greatest fear, espionage. Wonka fears his world of dreams will be leaked and soullessly copied. If the dream escapes his control, it would no longer be his. So he concocts a plot that would put Charlie to a loyalty test. Only after that does Wonka, for the first time in years, share the secrets of dreams with another person. Wonka's inventions are very personal to him. He's the artist, and his inventions are his fantasies. So, like in Freud's theories, the child is the one that helps the adult to expose his deepest fears and desires. But what the fuck does it all mean? Part 4. Willy Wonka and the intent of the author. Where does a piece of art get its meaning from? The obvious answer, at least to me, is from the author. But there are many problems with that answer. If the author intended something that nobody on earth besides themselves picked up on, could you really consider that part of the piece? It goes back to the age-old, if a tree falls down in a forest and nobody hears it, did it make a sound question. But there's more problems. What if the author lies? How would we know? What if the author says one thing and then years later retcons it and says something else? Which author counts? The one that just created the work or the current one? They may have gained a new perspective on choices they made subconsciously, or they just may have lost touch with their old selves. How do we know the difference? Also, press interviews and statements can be just as open to interpretation as the art itself, which makes them dangerous to count on, especially if they are old or missing context. Giving a talk is different than doing promotion. Talking to entertainment journalists is different than talking to news journalists. What if a piece of art has multiple authors, like a different writer and director? Surely they have some kind of miscommunication or disagreement along the way, either big or small. So whose opinion is more valid? The one who created the story or the one who brought it to life? The job of a director is to interpret the script, but can they misinterpret the script? Or does anything they interpret inherently become correct? What if there are 3 authors, an original book author, a screenwriter who interprets the book, and a director who interprets the script? What the hell even counts as an author's intent at that point? Can the filmmakers misinterpret the book? Roald Dahl, the original author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, did not like how the movie came out. Does that mean the movie is an invalid interpretation of the book? What if the original author is dead and can't confirm or deny anything? What if there is a writer's room of 7 people? Can they really all be in sync? And even if they are, what if their choices are overruled by some corporate producer who doesn't understand what the writers are trying to do? Is the producer now the author of the work? How can you be an author of a work without having grasp on all its moving parts? On the other hand, how can you be an author of a work you don't have control over? It makes you want to give up the idea of author's intent altogether. But really we shouldn't. The people who created the work did have a vision. They made it with a coherent idea of what the work is and isn't, how it should be interpreted, and what interpretations are not their intent. If some asshole on the internet comes up with some dumb theory and the creators say, no, then it's wrong, isn't it? What, any idiot can say anything about a movie and that counts more than the people who actually made the thing? That doesn't seem right. What if you say, Schindler's List is an allegory for gender dysphoria? Is that valid? No, that's stupid. But if you say the same thing about The Matrix, that's actually correct. The director confirmed it. But it was a fan interpretation way before the director confirmed it, so what the hell am I even saying? Boy, I sure wish there was an influential thinker who could help us with this issue. Sit the fuck down, you two. John Fiske was a thinker in the field of semiotics. That's the study of signs and signifiers. His suggestion is that the meaning of communication is determined 50% by the person who sent it and 50% by the person who received it. He gives the sender and the recipient of a letter equal weight. No one side can overrule another. What they agree on becomes fact, but no one is objectively correct if there is a miscommunication. You can apply that to any form of communication, including art. The parts of a movie that are communicated perfectly, where everyone involved is on the same page, are fact. But if you have a theory that the author did not intend, or if the author intended something that you don't accept, assuming it genuinely came out of your experience of the work, it is still part of the work. That being said, you can't ignore the creator's intent. That will always be a force that pushes against your theory with equal weight. Did the creators of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory think about Freud and Marx? Probably not. Does that make this entire video wrong?
sir. Wrong!
Maybe, but I'll leave you with this. Freud's work used to be the basis of the science of psychology. But as time went on, new, better, more convincing theories about how we understand the human mind emerged, and Freud's theories were generally discarded. So although it was revolutionary for the time, Freud's work is no longer science. And his books are no longer sold under the psychology section, but under the philosophy section. Communism has been tried to lackluster results. Thus it was hard to keep putting the Communist Manifesto in the economy book section, at least in the West, with a straight face. So Marx's work has also been transferred to the philosophy section. So if there's anything to take away from this video, it's that you can just be wrong and call it philosophy. Good day, sir.
I know.